So this clip's by Tabalshion. What? What? Dude, the aim resistance just completely breaks, dude. It just keeps going. How long is this? This is a minute long. I can't believe what I'm seeing, dude. This has to be the absolute craziest Bile Dragon clip that I've ever seen. Like, what? Hang on. He's all right. Come on. Roach is gone. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're going over the balance feedback we did on stream the other day for the enemies, because I don't think that some of these have ever been in a worse state since Helldivers 2 came out, even during Escalation of Freedom. And I've seen a lot of discourse around just all the enemy balance lately, but from my perspective, the new direction kind of removes most of the skill expression and all of our player agency for a really cheap difficulty slider, which is the exact opposite of where we started. Like last year, we had bug patrols where, like, solo, you're killing like 2,000 enemies a game. In squads, we were racking like 3,000 to 4,000. We even pushed up to like 4,800. And like this kicked tons of people out of the hardest difficulty, but it got removed because it affected every tier of difficulty. And now we're kind of lucky to see maybe like on like a high kill 4-man game, like 2,000 enemies. But I understand why it needed to be removed from the lower tiers. It just never should have been removed from the hardest difficulty, because it made the game like truly challenging. Like the game was actually like hard to play during that. Like it wasn't just hard, but it was challenging, fun, and fair at the same time, because it forced you to make tons of decisions that could make or break the game pretty much instantly, because if you died, you death spiraled like very easily because there's just so many enemies everywhere. And honestly, it doesn't really matter who you are. Making decisions, and lots of them fast, you're going to make mistakes, and then that is how games are difficult. Like when you're raiding on World of Warcraft, you see very quickly, whether you're leading a guild or just in a guild, like the people beside you making all these really obvious glaring mistakes are all being forced to make decisions, even though they can see the timer on their screen, and they're still messing it up. And I think the last time we really had Helldivers be difficult was with the relaunch of the Predator strain. It had insane amounts of enemies pushing like up above like 3,000 kills in some games, and it forced us to make tons of fast decisions. But when you died and made mistakes, it was in your hands, so you could work around it and think about ways to improve and get better and overcome it. We all got cooked on the Predator strain when it first came out. It was actually really difficult, and that's why everyone loved the way that it made the game challenging. It was like true difficulty, rewarding you for using all the skills that you built up over time. For like a year into the game, you felt so good to finally be challenged like that. But then they reduced the spawns by like half the next time the Predator strain appeared. And now we have things coming out like War Striders that are just ragdoll spamming you. And like, irrelevant to who thinks this is really difficult or not, which it isn't. It's just stupid to be desynced like underneath the ground to the other side of a wall. Like, it's ridiculous. It looks dumb. And all this does is remove your decision making from the game altogether. Like, there's also talk about meatballs. They're not hard either. They're just completely broken and unfinished. Like, their hitboxes are much larger than their bodies, as like an invisible bubble, and you go flying when they hit you if you dive. Like, all this promotes is the best way to cheese them, which is terrible for the long-term health of the game. Look, just because you're good at bad mechanics doesn't make the bad mechanics good. It never had, it never will, and that's all some people are good at, so that's why they grasp to it so heavily. So that's why my community and I put this together, is to just hope that some of the feedback gets through, even though it's felt like this for the last 6 months for pretty much anybody who's played the game. But just to break this down, I have the full stream linked in this first link in the description if you want to check out like the in-depth breakdown of everything. Some of this we've gone over before in the last one, but it's just important to put it all in one place. Most importantly, over anything else, the game should not receive any changes until they're tested properly. Rushing things out is removing positive fixes and introducing bugs or broken mechanics, actively making the game worse for things that are not important to rush out. January 26th this year, there was a balance patch, small balance patch, that re-added the explosive value to ragdolling, which makes you go flying through the air. And that feels terrible. And it's been like that since then, and they need to remove it again. So when it's ready, it's ready. That's it for me. I don't need rushed out content. I feel like there's enough content in the game and I just want things to be finished and ready when they are ready. This feedback does not aim to alter the true vision of the game, and the goal is to try and help make it more fun, balanced, and demanding. Every faction should be more engaging and interesting, and it should force skill expression through meaningful decision making, but that has actively been being removed from the game for so long that it's hard to remember when it started. All the new enemies and updates do this fairly regularly, and I think it's very clear when the Illuminate are not the major order target, or like there's just nothing to do on the map, there's less people playing them than idling. And that's a serious problem. Like, the faction should be fun to play. It's currently, like, the missions are too easy. Like, across the board, you could play the game with your feet and beat the Illuminate, right? And they have spam bullet sponges, which is just not fun. So, a couple of quick suggestions to make the game more fun and challenging short term that could be fairly easy would be to add an Eagle Sweat booster that makes more enemies spawn and attracts them to you. Add a ragdoll safety mechanism that stops you from being ragdolled for 3 seconds after being ragdolled 3 times in a row. Aim resistance is something that's what you saw in the Bile Dragon just going crazy. It's when an enemy resists where you're aiming at it, and it like flies away from it or moves away from it. And it's fine on ground enemies like the Predator strain, which you can see them moving away from you quickly because of their limitations. But flying enemies regularly break, and they have too much freedom and the ability to move around to be able to have any kind of aim resistance, so that it should just be removed from flying enemies altogether. A lot of enemy corpses, especially on the bots, the new Bile Dragons, especially the Rupture strain and the Bile Spewers, they have much larger hitboxes than they appear, and they body block bullets, and that needs to be fixed because it's just insanely frustrating to be like well over something shooting, and then it just gets body blocked by it. One thing that we forgot about was the explosive value on Ragdoll needs to be reduced back to Omens of Tyranny. The January 26th update broke that, so if they reduce that back down, Ragdolling will feel infinitely better across the board, and that needs to happen more than anything else. Now, probably the biggest offender of the new update is the Dragon Roach. This is probably the worst coded enemy in the entire game. Let me explain why. This enemy spawns way too much on lower difficulties. First of all, it needs a longer cooldown. On the hardest difficulty, I think it's fine to have it spawn as much as it does, but I don't like that it replaces Bile Titans as a spawn. I think having both is fine. It would make the game more challenging and difficult to have Bile Titans and Bile Dragons. I think that they should both be able to be active on the planet at the same time. It doesn't make sense that they aren't. And then they should also expand Shrieker Nests and the Mega Base to have a Dragon Roach spawner inside of them. And they could still have it as a planet modifier, of course, but I think that that would also add them to more missions, more just in general, and then we would see them more. But I do think that they need to lock their stuff in first. So this is a flying enemy with no negatives compared to a normal Bile Titan. If mechanically it can't be fixed, then the entire body needs to be reduced to AP3 from AP4. Realism demands that the body be lighter than the wings, so just in general, it doesn't make sense that it's just a flying Bile Titan. It just needs to be down armored, and I think that with some of this other stuff, that's probably the best short-term fix that they could possibly do for it. The aim resistance is way too high on the Bile Dragons. It can bug out and just like this doesn't happen a lot and all the time, but you regularly see them drop, dip, bob, weave everywhere. And again, flying enemies bug out way more often. This is an extreme example, but it can happen. And again, that aim res needs to be removed from flying enemies. Now, one of the biggest issues with its Dragon Breath, it's purely fire damage, which that part's fine. But the AoE glyph from this breath is not interruptible at all. Like a normal Bile Titan, you can stagger him and the breath will miss you. But this has a guaranteed strike zone no matter what you do to it. You can completely stagger lock this thing in the air, and it is going to hit the same area all the time, no matter what. And you can't warp pack or jump pack out of it. It is always going to tick you at least once. The damage ticks so many times that you get pretty much instantly killed if you're not wearing fire-resistant armor. If it's going to be a guaranteed strike zone, which it shouldn't be, there should be a telegraph like the Stingray's AoE. You should be able to interrupt it and stagger it out of that. You should also be able to shoot the sacks out. If you blow the sacks out, it doesn't stop the dragon from breathing at all. That should also force it to land. And if it can't land, it should just try and crash into you as like a death rattle attack if it can't breathe on you. Those things should probably make more sense. And then the wings need to be an actual weak spot. This was in a dev interview with somebody who worked on the Bile Dragon, that saying that the wings are a weak spot, when in fact you cannot kill the Bile Dragon by shooting the wings basically at all with like pretty much anything. As for the Rupture strain, there was a lot of back and forth about if this is a positive or negative enemy for the game. Well, the devs removed it because it was such a negative enemy for the game. So very clearly one side was right, and we weren't just cry diving about this. It was just a flat out stim tax if you didn't bring an explosive weapon. The bugs already had an explosive meta, so forcing us to bring more explosive weapons was just stupid and not intuitive. Like the Predator strain and the Gloom strain promote like high stagger or light penetrating weapons. This just promoted more of the same, which is not very interesting at all. And as you can see in the background, this enemy was completely broken after they reworked it, and then the auto aim attack was still there. It was less common after they reworked it, but you could still be instantly hit with a jetpack. You could still like have that undodgeable thing. There was like a 1 frame window that you could dodge like some sort of Souls-like game, but and then the unburrow, like you could kite them a bit and you could force them to unburrow. In general, after the rework, this enemy was so broken that like it just wasn't working, and they removed it from the game because of that. So I do think they need to remove the auto aim attack pretty much no matter what. And I think the most interesting thing that they could make the Rupture Strain do is just have them burrow behind you. That way they're constantly trying to just cut you off. Enemies surrounding you is going to force different decisions. It's probably the best short-term solution to just make them like really good, but we'll have to see what they do when they rework them in like a couple weeks at this point. And I think the best possible idea that I saw was making this the Land Shark sub faction. Just add a little fin to the top of them that's AP3, and then you could pop them out of the ground with that. And then lorefully, like whatever they said about it was like the exoskeleton was like off of it or whatever. So like the front was going to be more armored, but the back was going to be down armored, and that wasn't the case at all. Like it was just the same value, but +1 on the front, and I don't think that was very good at all. I think that the Bile Spewers were pretty easy to kill across the board, but like visually, I would have really liked to have seen all of them like have a color-coded change. Kind of like how you're fighting a Hive Guard, and it has the black hard carapace on the front, and it has the white soft skin to tell you that like, okay, those are two different things. The Rupture Strain should also have that. Like the Charger should be armor value 5 on the front, and then armor value 3 on its back armor plates, and it should visually change to show you that. And I think that all of the Rupture Strain should be minus armor value on anything that isn't the front of them, right? The front is perfectly fine being up armored if the back isn't. Again, there was also like a ton of people yapping about how amazing this was. It was terrible for the game. This faction was not fun to play against. It was very boring. It wasn't intuitive. It wasn't interesting. It wasn't even really that hard. It was just stim tax if you didn't bring explosives. I think that there was a lot of bad faith arguments around this, and I think that to understand my perspective, if you were blindly defending this, this is how I view your take on it. So that way you can see like visually like how I'm seeing what you're trying to describe. So this post is dodging the Rupture Strain after the fix is 10 times easier than last week. Video evidence low effort. So this is a low effort science experiment, and to break down their thought process of how they VOD reviewed this clip, early in this clip, I'm late on a dive, like, oh no, my health insurance won't cover this, but guess what? Bug number 2 completely whiffs while I'm midair. Last week, the same move would have had me respawning faster than you could say reinforce. Bug 3 takes a shot, and I dodge it like a cheesy action movie. Again, last week, insta-death. So, as you'll notice, the entire UI is also hidden for whatever reason. So just to quickly VOD review this clip, just to break it down very fast. So the first warrior doesn't leap at all, it just unburrows. The second warrior also just unburrows. The third warrior is going to automatically snap to him and hit him. Now the reason that he said it didn't hit him was because he has his health bar disabled and he doesn't understand what bleeding is, I guess. So does take a hit. You can also, by the way, dodge this if you leap backwards the second that it jumps out of the ground. Like there is a timing for it, but it's like 1 frame, like some sort of weird Souls-like. So it's not good, right? So I'll keep reviewing the clip. That one, he's stimmed, so like, you know, we can't tell if it hit him or not. We would be able to if he had his health bar enabled. And just as we keep going, it's just like, I also didn't mind, again, I didn't mind the Bile Spewers, to be real with you. I know a lot of people hated them. Fourth warrior hits him again. He's stimmed. Clip magically ends right as we're about to get overrun and completely obliterated by the rest of this stuff. As for the Illuminate, I think that this faction completely lost its identity with the addition of Leviathans and Meatballs. It used to be so engaging with like the horde clearing, and then it had that really fun like medium to almost heavy class units, but no super heavy. And then with the addition of Meatballs and Leviathans, it just didn't fit the theme anymore. And I do think more than anything, they need to lower the spawn weight of flesh mobs and up the spawns of the Viltless and Harvesters like it used to be. And then the best sub-faction suggestion that we had was Voteless Surge just as a faction. Like, we saw this on Calypso the first day that it happened. I think our first game that we played and we like kill farm, we got like 3,800 kills. It was ridiculously fun. There was Overseers, Harvesters, Voteless everywhere. It was actually like hard the first day that it was out. Like, it was really fun. So I want to go back to that because currently when you play, you're lucky to get 1,500 kills in like a 4-man mission. And like, that's like pretty much like half of what it started as. So it's going to be way less fun, right? So anyways, flesh mobs currently make the faction less engaging. They're less fun to fight, and their current state, because they remove what made the Illuminate fun as a horde faction by replacing the Voteless Spam with just a massive bullet sponge. If you don't understand this enemy yet, it has 6,000 HP, 25% explosive resistance, and 25% durability. So it just soaks a ton of damage from everything that isn't just like a direct explosive damage weapon, so like you're blitzing down with the Scorcher and the Purifier, and it really removes any kind of skill expression with like aiming for weak spots and stuff like that. So I do think spawn mechanically it should be changed to 1 flesh mob per 40 Voteless, and that as a patrol would feel way more fun to fight as like maybe a boss with the Voteless, because right now there is a patrol of 4 meatballs, 1 overseer, and 10 zombies. So if 3 of those spawn, you are fighting like, what would that be? 72,000 HP. I think that's just ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like a Bile Titan has 6,500 HP, and it's like you don't feel bad when you fight 5 Bile Titans. When you fight 5 flesh mobs, you're kind of just rolling your eyes the entire time. So the reasoning behind why flesh mobs are so bad for the game is that their attack hitboxes are much larger than their modeled animations. When we slow it down, you can kind of just see, like, even during the charge animation, the ragdoll radius is just much larger than the meatball. It has like an invisible bubble around it, and it's just like it's been like this since Super Earth came out. They really need to lock this enemy in, and they need to make it so its arms can't ragdoll you in the charge. I think that's the best short-term fix. Its charge radius is also like way too tight. Like, it can snap turn like the chargers can. And then I think that the random enrage needs to be removed for stun counterplay, and then make the enrage just be a 10% HP mechanic as like a death rattle, where it's kind of freaking out because it's getting low, and then it breaks out of stun. That way it's like you can lock it down. It promotes more build diversity and just like fun loadouts, right? And then destroying a leg on this thing should remove its ability to charge. Currently, you can like rip it off to like a bone, and it can just still run full speed. So currently the mechanics of the meatball is it takes 2 times fire, 2 times electricity. So it already has status weakness, which means it should also take 2 times gas damage. Popping the heads should deal 400 bonus damage to their main health, similar to like if you pop a Bile Titan sack. This way it rewards you for precision aiming and shooting all the heads off. This would make so many weapons feel so much better to fight them with. And then alternatively, if they can't make that happen, then just 150% damage to main would effectively be the same thing if you're ripping the pieces of the flesh off. And then that is the magic easy wand fix that they were talking about in one of their posts that they couldn't do. And a lot of this stuff is just number changes. So either of these rewards accuracy with ballistic weapons and is more skill expressions for us to take advantage of. If both legs are destroyed, it should just run on all 4 arms like some sort of like Japanese horror monster, and then we're talking real Halloween gaming. But as for the Leviathan, these have been disabled for quite some time. I guess it was confirmed as a bug somewhere, but this enemy completely removed the Illuminate's faction identity for not being able to take medium penetration weapons. It genuinely just feels bad to play against in every single situation, and just across the board I don't think it's very intuitive because they designed it to be ignored. But it's one of the coolest enemies in the entire game, and more interesting enemies we should want to fight them. They should be an engaging part of the faction. We should be playing against this thing instead of it just flying around being kind of annoying. Like, that's weird. I want to fight the giant cool thing, right? So this rework suggests and explains like how planets got glassed by the Illuminate as well, so that way there's like a lore explanation for everything. So currently the turrets have too much effective HP. By the time you kill them with any of the AP4 weapons, the Leviathan pretty much already flew away, so they could make them AP3 or whatever, or lower the HP. One or the other. Those frontal turrets just, like, it doesn't make sense to shoot them off. You should just break the wings. And they also spam TCU, which is just not fun. It was like they just strapped 4 bunker lasers from the bot bases onto this thing and thought that would be interesting after they strapped it on the Hulks and pissed everybody off. So that also needs to be removed. And then mechanically, I think all 4 of those guns should be turned into harvester lasers that are armor value 3. And then the big circle under the front should be a massive harvester style laser that shoots straight down, and it should try and chase you down with a super beam, and it should scorch the ground like an orbital laser. But when the circle's shooting that beam, it opens up to like make an extremely vulnerable weak spot that you could shoot a rocket into and one shot it at the perfect angle. Got to have like just that Independence Day I'm back moment. You're just waiting that last possible second. You pop the rocket off, it blows the Leviathan up in one shot. Maybe if you shot it too late, you still die to the big laser, but like whatever. It also needs an extremely cool laser sound effect, by the way, but it would be so much more engaging and fun to fight if it was actually just this big threat like that, like a boss level threat instead of just being something we ignore. That's what I want. I want to. It'd be more challenging as well. It'd be more interesting across the board. And then some other suggestions people had was that it should spawn watchers, and then if you're spotted by the watchers for an alert column, it should gravitate any of the current Leviathans towards the flares. And then noting all those changes above, the HP needs to be completely reworked if they do that. So for the HP rework, it should have a shield like Harvesters, and then you should be able to destroy the small circles to prevent the shield recharge. And then AP4 main body with AP3 weak points would just make quite a bit more sense, and it would bring the faction identity back. It would make this enemy more interesting to fight. And over anything else, it would just be extremely fun, fair, and challenging. Moving on to the Overseers, cap the flight height, first of all, and then the strength of evasive maneuvers utilized to avoid players' reticles should be reduced. This is the aim resistance. Sometimes you can push them around wherever you want. In this clip, I'm pushing them into the floor because I started shooting above them and pushed my gun down. And you consistently do this to all of them once you know how the aim resistance works. But their aim resistance is still way too high, and again, needs to be removed on all flying units. It can get stuck in buildings, and then its time between shots needs to be reverted to the launch state of Omens of Tyranny. And then if the jetpack is pierced, they should add a spiral out of control mechanic. So like you pierce the jetpack and it starts buzzing around and blows up. And that would just be cool. It'd be more thematic, it'd be more interesting. I think it'd just be more fun to play against. And then it adds that like pierce mechanic to the jetpack, and it rewards you for precision aiming, more sniper gameplay, more stuff like that. And it just makes the game more interesting for everybody across the board and promotes build diversity. The Voteless needs more spawns just across the board, just like it was during the Calypso invasion. And then speed needs to be reduced to the old Omens of Tyranny value, because right now sometimes they are sprinting like crazy fast. Maybe if it was like a Overseer Enrage mechanic that did that, that would be cool. That like made their eyes glow or what, like made them faster, and then you had to like kill Overseers to prevent the speed boost. That would be more interesting, but currently it's just weird. As for the Stingray, the animation for its attack does not appear if it starts behind a building. It does this weird, now this update, it does a weird snap jolt towards you. Like it'll show that it's going this way, but like you're over here, and then it'll snap towards you. But the glyph is going to stay in that one direction, and then it's just going to fly at you and shoot you so that you can't see the glyph either, and that needs to be fixed as well. As for the Tesla Towers, they currently have no health pool, and they need 30 demo force to destroy. So they need to add a health pool and make it like AP3, and then lower the demo force to 10, so at least the Epoch can blow it up. Moving on to the bots, dropships. They fixed the majority of stuff with them, but the dropship bodies don't despawn correctly sometimes still, and then their smoke and fire will still be active, and if this happens too many times. Now, as for the War Striders, I think this enemy needs to be temporarily disabled. When we were doing some testing, every single time there was like 2 or 3 of them shooting their grenades at the same time. That's when a lot of the stuttering, lag, and just hard locking issues started happening. And then like all of the audio problems, when too many of those things blow up at the same time, it just completely cooks everything up. So whenever there's more than one of them, that's when you really start seeing a lot of problems on the bots, especially on some biomes. I think Minotauro was probably the worst we've ever seen these be. So I think that they should temp remove them for now until they can either lock that in or just make them shoot like maybe a quarter amount of the grenades, which also isn't very interesting, right? So anyways, this enemy has no true AP3 weak point, and it goes against the Automaton's faction design. This enemy also ragdoll spams you through terrain, completely removing any kind of decision making from the player. And then what I think they should do for fixes is reduce the leg joints to armor value 3. Similar to the Factory Strider, an armor value 3 weak point is something nobody ever really shoots at, and even if you are shooting with AP3, that doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy to kill. It's going to be extremely durable. So it's going to be like a super last resort to shoot at this thing with AP3. What this does is open up all of the AP4 weapons to feel substantially better for shooting at it with. So it opens up way more build diversity and is just going to be more fun to play against across the board. They should also add a heatsink to the back of the drive systems. It's already kind of like animated there. It's just not glowing, and it's also not a weak point. So what this would do is it rewards you the same way that spinning Hulks does, like splitting up, dividing and conquering, like rewarding team play. Like I spin the Hulk, you shoot him in the back. Same thing would go for the War Striders, because solo, you're pretty much never going to be able to flank a War Strider. Or they should make the grenade launchers like the Rocket Striders, where breaking them causes an explosion that kills them, but also creates a massive AoE cook-off for the death zone, like an airburst explosion as an example. And then they should remove the ragdoll from the lasers. The grenades are more than enough ragdoll, and like it being able to combo ragdoll into itself, it just creates really terrible interactions. Scout and bunker lasers, they have no real weak point. It's visual, but it's not AP3, it's AP4 all around it. They should not have ragdoll and damage. It should just be damage, and they should lower the accuracy of them. These are awful to play against, right? Pretty much, I think that I haven't talked to a single person that's like, wow, I had so much fun getting sniped across the map by a bunker laser on a bot bait. It doesn't make any sense. The gray on gray also makes them insanely hard to see, so I think that this needs to be changed to be more visible. Adding a laser so you know where they're shooting would be way better. There's a weird Chinese mod for this that like adds a laser to where they're pointing, so if there's a mod for that, the devs could totally do it. And then a suggestion to change the laser to 2 Gatling guns that spray at you like a factory strider. I think that would be much more interesting than what they have now, but again, these need to be reworked completely. As for the rocket tank, I think that this enemy's been bugged for a while to just not shoot the majority of the time that it comes in, so that needs to be fixed first and foremost before anything. And then it should kite away from you like the Alpha Commanders and not drive at you, because it's a AoE suppression enemy. It should be trying to suppress you, not drive at you and stoke you, right? So I also think that the cook-off should be insane and kill everything around it in a decent radius, maybe half the size of a Hell Bomb, very similar to what I was talking about the War Strider. You blow the rack up, it goes crazy explosion, and it just makes more sense for realism and immersion. And like if they could animate the rockets flying out in all directions for the cook-off, it would just be so cool. Jet Brigade wise, we need a jetpack factory strider. They already do fly through the air when you kill them sometimes, so I think that would be a W. And then this post about jet berserkers was S tier. Look at this dude. The crazy part is the bots would shoot them in the back and blow the jetpacks up half the time. But like, this guy has a crazy post about these, and it's really well written, so I highly suggest you take it out. This is just such an amazing post to read through. It's finally, we're on the Terminids. So this is the charger thing again, the shoulder iframe. It's right or left when you shoot it with a rocket. Pretty much does no damage the majority of the time. It does that fast walk into the one shot, and it should not move or spin around in a circle when it's done. And then the turn radius has been completely broken for forever now, and it needs to be reverted to patch 1. And then they're silent, so their footsteps need to be there. I do think that the same thing goes for the Behemoth Charger. This enemy is just, it has never been properly tested. It used to be a POI boss when the game first came out, like you would see it on the Extract Civilian mission in the main POI for that. I think it should probably just go back to being a boss charger. As for the Impalers, the tentacles stay alive long after it dies sometimes. It also lives lethal damage when you blow an entire piece of its back out. So that's really weird, and it also won't bleed out to that for like 40 seconds. It's really weird, so that needs to be fixed. As for the Bile Titan, the mouth hitbox, this is a large ask, but it should be interactable by grenades. Like if you throw a grenade to its mouth hole, it just one-shots it, right? Think about that bug scene from Starship Troopers where he throws the grenade in, it gulps it down and it blows up. That's what I want to see out of the Bile Titan. I think that would be insanely cool, but again, I don't know if they'll ever be able to do that. As for Bile Spewers, they're kind of just a stat check. That AP2 mouth is never really exposed long enough to be shot with anything, so AP2 can't really kill it in a reasonable amount of time. Top plate on its head could be AP3, but like the eyes and below should be AP2. And then the legs should also be AP2, so you can shoot them off for a kill. Spawn weight is way too high and eats up other spawns, making the game be pretty boring whenever you're playing a Bile Spear Seed. And the sack should be more of a weak point, and the durability of them definitely needs to be looked at. The invisible hitbox after it dies is massive, and I think this needs to be fixed as a priority over anything else. So anyways, guys, thank you for watching. Thanks for hearing me out. Hope you enjoyed the Yap session, and I hope you all have a beautiful night.